Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. Today, I'm going to be talking you guys through how you can build your perfect quote with our customizable tables. So this is our quote tables and our quote table styling. My name's Abby, and I'm the customer success manager here at ProspectSoft, and I've been with the company now for about 3 years or so. So I'm really excited to do this webinar with you all. And for a quick agenda, I'll be going through the slides as usual. We'll get into a demo, and then at the end, there'll be time for a Q&A. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar, do put it in the Q&A area, and I'll get to it at the end. Now, this can be related to what I'm talking about. It can be related to perhaps something else, but connected. So feel free to just pop any questions below, and I will try to answer them best I can at the end. But a quick agenda for the demo part. I'll be taking you through step by step how you can design your new quote table styling. So some of you might have noticed we've released a new type of styling, and that's the HTML quote styling. And that's for your quote tables, and this can be used within your documents as well as your emails. And yeah, it's really nice. We've got some built-in styles. You can do a little preview of them, and you can also use our new toolbar button to quickly insert them into emails, whether that's in a template or the email directly. So I'll be taking you through all of that. If we have a look at the key takeaways, though, I think the really important key takeaway for today's webinar is just how you can make sure your style is consistent, is professional, eye-catching, and something that just reflects the brand. I think it's really important that all of the communication you send out is branded to a professional standard and is consistent. Not just to have seamless styling, but also just to make it a bit eye-catching. It develops your brand's identity. So when customers are getting these quotes, they know instantly it's from your brand because they can just tell from the styling. So it's really important to have that properly configured, which is what we're going to be talking through today. And even if you had it configured many years ago or you're happy with it, it's always worth doing a review of it every now and then just to make sure there isn't just the little things you can be doing to improve it and really elevate it. And finally, just making sure that you're happy and you can send in confidence. So you know that what you're configuring in the quote table styling is actually what's going to be put in the email when your users are sending it out, making sure that your workflow is really streamlined and just showing you some tips and tricks. All right, let's get into the demo. That's the most exciting part. So I'll go over into the CRM here. So to start off, we'll have a look at the quote table styling. And to get there, you go into settings and system settings, and it's within emails and documents. So if we scroll down, you'll notice you've got quote tables. So this is where you actually create the table itself. So this is saying what fields are within the table. Do you want images and things like that? And below it, you've got quote table styling. So this is where you configure the styling. So how those quote tables are actually produced either in Word or the email. So let's click to configure these. So traditionally, you might have noticed that we used to use Word styling. So you would create a Word document, edit your table with all the styling you want, and then you kind of save that style and add that to your quote table. Whilst you can still do that, we've also got this amazing feature, which is HTML quote table styling. So what's really important is with this way, you can actually use the styling within your emails. The kind of legacy way of doing it using the Word document styling doesn't work in emails. It's only for documents. Whereas this, it works for both. So definitely worth perhaps using this as a chance to review your styling and switch over to the new one because it's a lot simpler to use. We have some default ones here already created. You'll notice they're pretty much just the default Word ones that you get, but they already have your branding colors on it. So this profile has a really nice turquoise and purple color for their branding, and so that's what's been used. Now that I've pointed that out, I'll just quickly show you where you can configure them because you might not be too sure. A lot of this stuff you kind of configure when you get the CRM for the first time, so you might not have ever touched this ever since you were onboarded. So definitely use this as a chance to review, as I've mentioned. So to check those branding colors, we're going to go to Integration Operating Company and click into your operating company, and here it is. So you can see we've got the primary color and we've got the accent color. You've also got a chance to upload your logo. Now, that's not going to affect the quote table styling, but it's still good to do because the branding that you set up here isn't just used by the quote table styling, it's also used for things like the quote to order workflow authorization button. So that little portal that your customers can see when they accept or decline, it uses these branding colors. And there are a few other things that we use the branding colors for. So it's again really important that you get these consistent across your communication. So give these a review and make sure you're happy with them. Okay, so let's come back out of here and go back to the quote table styling. So we've got these default ones here. You can use them, you can use the ones you've already got, or you can change these slightly if you wanted to. So perhaps if we go on to this one, you get a little preview when you click the pencil icon, but you can also then actually edit the default ones. So you might want to do this if you're happy with the default ones that we've put in, but actually just want to make some small changes. So for instance, here, I pretty much like it all, but I want the borders to be a bit thicker because I think it makes it a little bit easier for customers to identify the different lines. And I actually don't want the border to be my accent color. I want it to be black. So then it makes it pop out a little bit more. So this is where I was saying about the primary and accent colors. We have these really nice, useful buttons here for you to just select them and it uses the colors, or you can just use custom ones like I showed here, which is just a color picker. Just makes it a little bit easier. So then you're not trying to find the exact shade of blue that your branding is. You can just click primary or accent and you know it's going to use the right hex code. So in this instance, actually, I'm really happy with this table and I'm just going to save that ahead and update that. And you can now see that it's showing here. But for instance, maybe actually I don't really like any of these. And as I was saying, you want to make sure your branding is consistent, is professional, and really to your taste. So you might want to just create a whole new style from blank. You really want it to be customized. To do that, you just click the button in the top right-hand corner and you'll get the editing screen, very similar to the one that you saw just now. You'll obviously want to give it a good description. And you can use based on. So this option here is to use when you want to have a styling that's similar to the default ones, but you want to have a little bit more freedom, or you kind of just want that basic thing already there. So you can select from here. You don't have to, it's an option. I'm not going to for this example. I'm going to do it completely from scratch. Now, nobody's saying that you have to have your quote tables be anything really fancy and out there. You really want it to work for your business. I think sometimes the simpler the better. Obviously, a quote table is showing the customer what items they're buying, any extra detail. You want it to be really clear. So, in my opinion, I think borders are really good. I think it creates good separation. So, I'm going to add them in and I'm going to make sure that they're black. But I do want to add a bit of pop of color and I do want it to be branded to me. So actually, I want to just make the top row here and I want that to be probably my primary color. And to do that, I'm going to do apply formatting. I don't want it to be the whole table. I just want it to be the header row. And here I want it to be my primary color. And that's nice, but black text doesn't really work. So I'm going to change this over here to be white. And if I wanted to, I could also change the font. I could also change the font size. I could make it italic, bold, underlined. You've got quite a few styling options there. I'm kind of happy with how it is though, but I do want to actually change the header column as well. So I'm going to go in and change that. I'm going to make it my accent color, just so then I've got both my branding colors on there. It gives it, that proper color. It's highlighting the SKU field, which is quite an important field. So I'm happy with as it is. If you use quote line grouping, you can also preview that here by ticking groups, and you can also then select the different styling if you just do group header. For example, you might want to make that italic. And obviously that's only going to show if the quote has grouping. But yeah, that's pretty much how you can edit the styles themselves. Now, it's not massively complex or in depth. So if you're wanting something to be really custom, so you want to choose like the font of each individual cell or something like that, then you would still want to do that in Word and copy that over. It's just not going to work in email. I think the options we give you here is enough because you kind of do want to keep it nice and basic because I think that looks a bit more professional, but it's up to you, the options there. So I'm going to go ahead and create that now because I'm pretty sure I'm happy with that. And you'll see if we scroll down, we've got it right here. Now, you don't need to remember any of the style IDs here or anything, it's just there to be used. So now that we've actually created our styling, we have to then go and associate that to the actual quote tables themselves. So again, if you've got separate branding, perhaps you've got kind of two branches within one company that have very subtle differences, you might want to create a quote table for each and then have each a different styling. I think it's important to make sure the descriptions of your quote tables are uh, really descriptive. So then the users know they're selecting the right ones, especially if they've got different styling. You want to make sure it's obvious which styling they have, because this is the description they're going to see if they ever want to add this into a template or into the email. So if you aren't familiar, this is where you create your quote tables. If you click the pencil icon, this is where you choose what columns are in the actual table, any images and things like that. So that's where you edit that bit. And then if you go scroll down, you'll notice there's the style option. So as I've mentioned, you can use the word style. So this is here where you would just take the name of the styling in the Word document and add it into this area, and we'll use that. That's only for Word documents. If you wanted, you could use our new HTML quote table style, and this is going to be used for emails as well. So the way you select this is by changing the style, and you'll notice the one I created here is ready. So I'm just going to click there and I'm going to click save. And now I know anybody who generates this quote table is going to use this styling, which is why I was mentioning it's quite important to make sure the description is accurate, especially if you've only got very minor differences, or if, say, you only want this one to be used in emails, you want to make sure that it's clear for people that this is for email use only. So that's pretty much the quote tables themselves configured. And if we come out of here, and how do we actually get that onto, for example, an email or a Word document? Well, if we scroll up and go to document templates, this is where you can get them added in. So obviously quote tables are only for quotes. So the document has to be merging from a quote. I've got basic email quote here. So if I click edit, I can double check, yes, I'm merging this data from quote. And if I click edit here, before where you would have had to know the ID and attach that to the quote dot whatever, I can't even remember it myself, you don't need to know that anymore. You can simply use the insert table option here, and it gives you the options of all the quote tables you've created. So I know that this top one is the one I've just added styling to. So it's only given me three options. It's important to note because, as I've said before, only emails, only email templates can generate quote tables that have the HTML styling. So any quote tables which don't use the HTML styling that we've just gone through and configured, if it uses the old Word one, then it won't show up in this list to select because the email can't generate it. But you can still use them in Word documents. So I'm happy with that, and I'm going to go ahead and save that in. Okay, so now that I've configured my styling, I've configured my quote table, and I've added that to my actual email template. If we were to, for instance, go onto a quote, you now have two options. So let's go into this quote and see. Add a product on here so we can see it generated. Yes, that's fine. Perfect. Now, if I go ahead and go to send an email, I obviously either have the option to select a template. So perhaps I do want to send the basic email quote. And here is the quote table that I've just created. And it's using the styling that I added. Obviously, it's looking a little bit better because they're only ordering one product, but yeah, this is what it will look like once it's actually embedded into the email. But say, for instance, I didn't want to use a template, I just wanted to kind of free text here, then that insert a table icon is also available here, as it was when you were creating the template. So users can select which quote table to use, and that's why I said it was really important to make sure that the descriptions are accurate, because sometimes customer users can just simply misclick or not know, and then it becomes a bit of a faff. So make sure for ease, you've got good descriptions here, and you can just add it in and it will generate. Or you can just use the template as is here, and that'll generate and send over to customers. So really nice and slick. It's got your branding. It was really easy to create. I think we did that entire configuration in about 10 minutes. So there's no excuse to not go and review this, just to make sure you're happy and you've got that professional branding that that you want to just help elevate your brand identity, really. So I'm going to go back to the presentation because it was a nice short demo today, and just go over again the key takeaways. I think I've said it quite a few times now in the webinar that it's really important to just make sure that your communication is seamless. It's consistent with your styling and with your brand. You really want to push hard for that brand identity, because then when customers are thinking who to get a quote from, or trying to remember your business if it's been a while, if you have a really clear identity, such as the styling, then that's gonna stick in their mind a little bit more. So just making sure that that really reflects your brand, that you've got that good styling, is going to be helpful in the long term. And as you've just seen, it takes literally 10 minutes to review all of this in the CRM, and then you're there. You kind of don't really need to look at it for another year or two, really, unless you have a rebrand. So nice and easy, nice and quick. And yeah, that's the Q&A. So I think maybe the quickest webinar we've done. So any questions about styling, about quote tables, anything, please do ask. And even if it's not about quote tables, I'm happy to answer it. We've got quite a lot of time left, so it would be good to hear questions from you guys. So, first question in, brilliant. Much better than Word, hours saved. I agree. Anybody who's tried to configure the Word styling ones, you probably remember it being really confusing and having to save things and then not working. And making the smallest of changes was really annoying. Like if you just wanted to change perhaps the color or the font or something like that, you had to create a whole new style. And yeah, this way, much better. I agree. Is there an option to move where the group heading appears? I don't understand why it's within the table instead of outside slash above it. So it's within the table because if we go and actually have a look at a quote, you'll be able to see what we mean here. So I think maybe not here, add a group. I don't think I've got it enabled here, so I can't add a group. But when you actually add the grouping within the CRM, it is just an extra line above all the products. So then the quote table reflects that. You wouldn't really have it outside of the table or as a separate table. You would want it within, because it's the grouping idea is that you're grouping the products together within the quote. And so it makes sense to have it within the table. That's how we've done it so far, but I think if it makes more sense to have it outside or above it or something, then that's really good feedback. So feel free to I'll pass that on to our marketing, to our product team, but also feel free to add it to our ideas portal, and they'll kind of see whether there's the option to maybe have one or the other. The demo was an email quote, but it looked like it had an attachment. So I'm not quite sure I know what you mean. So I'm just going to go back into that and go into the email. Do you mean when I selected this, did it come up with a document? Yeah, here. So you can, if I go back to the template, that's going to be the easiest way. So if we go back to the email template here, you'll notice in the basic email quote, you can actually attach templates. So I'm sending them the email and I want the quote table to be in the email so then it's there and easy to see. But actually, I also want to send over a proper like Word or PDF option of the quote, perhaps for them to print off or for their records. They've got that easy, easy access. So for this particular template, email template, I have it to automatically generate one of my Word quote templates, and I generate it in PDF. So um, I believe that's what you're referring to. You can also edit that template, that quote template, to use the quote table that I just created. You would just go in here. So it was quote template here. So you just click edit, you'd edit here. And when it comes up in Word, you've then got the option to select, like, add which table is generated in that document. But yes, the demo I went through was email quote, but this works just as well for the Word documents, which hopefully I've explained there a little bit. That makes sense. Thanks. No worries, of course. The table filled the width of the email. Can that be adjusted? That's a really good question. So in terms of what the styling, I suppose, looks like within the email, I don't think you can. At least there's nothing here that I think you can do. If we go back to the actual email and let's have a look and see if we can change that. Because I believe that mine came out like that because I don't have many fields actually in the table. Yeah, so I've only got 5 fields within this table. Often you'd probably end up having more actual fields, so then it wouldn't look so big. And I imagine it just looks this long because the editor takes up the entirety of the screen. I imagine when the email actually gets sent and opened, it doesn't quite look as weird, but I don't think there's a way to adjust the actual size of the table that's generated within the email. But that's a really great question. So one that I'll be passing over to our product team. Okay. Any more questions about this or about anything else? We've still got quite a lot of time. I think I've whizzed through that demo, but if anything, that's just shows how nice and easy it is to use the feature, to be honest. So yeah, any other questions, please do send them my way. Is there a simple way to duplicate a Word template? That's a really good question. So we don't have a duplicate button if we go back into document templates. So yeah, this one's Word. So there isn't like a button to just say duplicate, but actually it's really not that difficult. So what you would do is you just click to edit. That's going to open it within Word. If you save that Word document as, so you're creating a new document, make any edits you want to do on there. Perhaps, yeah, you just want it to be minor changes. And then all you would need to do is create a new document template. So perhaps you want to call it quote template dupe or two or something like that. You set it to Word. So this is just creating a normal template. So yeah, quote, fine, fine, fine. And then all you do once that's created is you can drag and drop into here. So that's what I do. So you've edited the document, you've made your changes, and you save that as a new Word document. And then all you need to do is kind of open up your File Explorer, drag and drop it into here, and then it's essentially duplicated. It's adding it in. So yeah, there's no button, but really the process is quite simple to do already. But I'll still pass that on to the product team. The product team always see all of your questions on webinars, by the way, so it's a great chance to also leave us feedback. So yeah, thank you very much. Okay, any more questions, please? If not, I'll just get my slides back up here. So just as a reminder, you can access all of the webinars that we have already done at prospectsoft.com/resources/webinars. They're also all on our YouTube page. So last week, Tanya and I did a really fun webinar demonstrating our new customizable dashboards. That was a really cool webinar. So if you haven't watched that, please do use this time. Perhaps you have blocked out for this webinar to catch up on that one. I'm still going to be hanging around for a couple of minutes. So if you had any more questions, please do put it in the chat. It can be about this, it can be about anything to do with the CRM, and I'll try and answer it. Otherwise, thank you guys for joining today. It's been a lot of fun, and yeah, I hope you all have amazing weeks. But yeah, the webinar has finished, but if you've got any questions, I'll hang around for a bit in case you wanted to ask any. One of our documents uses codings to bring across the info we put into problems. Brilliant. Is there a manual on the code for each of the heading in the CRM? Um, I'm not sure I fully understand your question, but I think I kind of do at the same time. So I think what you're asking about, so the kind of codings that you're referring to are known as merge fields. So that's kind of where you say, when you say hi first name, and it pre-populates with the first name of the person on the problem or on the quote. So we refer to them as merge fields. Then is there a manual on the code for each of the heading in the CRM? So I'm going to presume you're kind of asking, is there a manual for you to see what each of these codings are? So then you know if you wanted to add one or remove one. So I will, yes, exactly. Perfect. Glad I understood that. Let me try and show you if I can. Uh, if not, if it doesn't work in Word, I can show you the both ways of getting the codings for that. So the first way is actually going into the document templates. So if we go again and just edit the basic Word quote, you'll notice that there's the kind of field selector along the right-hand side here. So if you're looking to do it for emails, all you would need to do is select it here. So perhaps this says Dear Contact and it's going to use salutation. Perhaps actually I want that to be first name. So what I would do, like you're writing a report, you just want to go and find the field that you want to add. So this is quote, and I want it to be the contact, and I want it to be their first name. If it's here somewhere, first name. So you see, I just kind of click first name and it populates that code there for you. Now, this is going to be the same on email as it is in a Word document. So if you know you've got that coding in a email template, you can go and copy and paste it and add it into the Word document, or you can generate it here. Now, it's really important to make sure that you've got the base right. So you need to make sure that that coding is only going to work for if you're generating this from a quote. Because, for example, if you were generating it from a contact, you wouldn't have the contact dot, it would just be forename. But if you're doing this on a Word document, let me see if that's loaded up now for you to see. We basically have the field selector in Word. It's actually a little add-on you can add, and you can add that. There's like a documentation guide for how you add it. I think you just find it um, within the Microsoft Store. And if that's going to load, I'll show you what that looks like. Yeah, perfect. So let me bring this over here. So it's a little add-on in Word and it just pops up here saying Prospects of CRM. And you'll notice then here, once you log in, you've got the option here. So for example, if you're wanting to merge in from problem, you would then select problem and you've got access to all of these fields. So all of these codings, which will then auto-populate when you generate the template. So if you wanted to do close date or last updated or I don't know, type one, supplier reference, anything, you can just easily click around and add that in. So I would say, yeah, this is the manual we have. It's not really a manual, it's an even easier way of using it. It just kind of pre-populates them for you, and then as you've identified, it'll when you generate the template, it'll input all of that information. So yeah, the Word add-in is a really nice little tool, probably quite undervalued by customers. I think it's really snazzy. No worries. Awesome. Glad I could show you that. If there were any other questions, do let me know. Nothing coming in. All right. I hope that was nice and informative for you all. Have a lovely rest of your week, and I'm sure we'll catch up soon. Thanks for joining. Bye.